ECB also anticipating that down the line they may well actually increase stimulus.
Yeah, I think these days with central banks rates are so low, it's almost not what you say, but rather the tone of voice that you use, and indeed that proved to be the case with the ECB there. I mean, Mario Draghi wasn't really getting pulled out on details in the interview, despite many questions. But I think one was left with the sense of basically it's steady as we go, and that the market shouldn't be anticipating any changes at the moment. And I think no surprise there, given the current somewhat tricky states of European banks.
And do you think that the stimulus that's already in there, that's 80 billion euros per month being spent on bonds, both corporate and state bonds, do you think it has made a difference to European growth?
I don't think it's made as much as it would have been in the States, because in the US, I should say, because the US is a more open economy, less state involvement, and as a result, stimulus is going to push through. Whereas in Europe, I think it's possibly proving to be more of a pushing on a string situation. But the ECB is short of any other tools, so they may as well box on with that.
So we see that dollar strength continues on the back or in anticipation of the US probably raising rates in December. What informs that belief, and what does it mean for emerging markets?
Look, for a long time, the US used zero interest rate policy simply because the economy was considered too fragile to carry on without it. So we've got into the situation now where GDP is okay, but not rampant. And employment, though, is really very full. I mean, there's not a big unemployment buffer at all. And then quite often in the States leads to a situation where inflation could start getting off the ground through a wage cost spiral. So I think we're in the situation where there'll be a small preemptive hike, and I think also they're anticipating the likes of commodity prices going higher and so on. So almost a preemptive 25 basis point hike is in the offing, but I don't think a high degree of aggression from the Fed.
I would suggest that the local political noise that we've been subjected to in the past couple of weeks has settled somewhat. So do you think the weakening rand today is really all about dollar strength?
I think that's part of it. I agree with you. It's very good that no one important said anything too stupid this week. Absolutely.
All right, and moving on to some stocks now. I see BAT, British American Tobacco, looking to buy up the balance of shares it doesn't own in a US giant tobacco company, Reynolds American. What do you think of this move, and what does it mean in terms of competition? Because it would become a massive company if that did happen.
Absolutely. I think in terms of the competition issues, well, BAT already owns 42% of it, so they are what would be deemed a controlling shareholder already. So I wouldn't have thought they'd come in for competition issues. As far as the actual business sense of the move, it does make a lot of sense. British American Tobacco has quite a high share rating. It is extremely cash generative and is in a position where it's struggling for ways to use its cash flows to the best advantage of shareholders. And I think this is an acquisition that actually does make a bit of sense from that point of view.
So in terms of the clients that you look after or service, would this prompt you to maybe buy some more BAT shares? Would you be interested in that?
Not necessarily aggressively, but it's a positive move. Yeah, it does enhance the attractiveness.
And Lewis, in the retail space, furniture retail, telling the market that they expect their earnings to slide by 40% for their most recent half year. That company really hasn't been doing so well of late, not just for economic reasons, but also reputation reasons.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, as far as the economic cycle goes, we're looking at the top of the interest rate cycle. That's the hardest one for them. It's the hardest to generate new sales, and we saw that in the revenue line, which declined there. And it's also an environment in which, well, they've been taken to task over inappropriate selling of financial products, which is a much more stringently regulated environment than whatever normal retailers go through. So I think some expectation was there that their earnings were going to suffer. So it's not too big a surprise. So obviously quite a period of consolidation to go through for Lewis, and I'm not sure that we've seen the full news flow on what's going to happen there.
Despite all the scandal around their inappropriate sale of financial products and so on, do you think that they can recover?
I think they can. Yes, it certainly is a franchise that is well established and basically a sound business.
Okay, and I just wanted to touch on MTN very quickly. Yesterday we heard news about the Nigerian authorities pursuing MTN for this alleged outflow of revenues of around $13 billion, pardon me. Do you think that's really possible? Wouldn't it be reflected in the accounts?
I guess it would be a devil in the details. I mean, it's not necessarily something that you would see in an annual report because they don't go to that kind of depth. So it's possible.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to leave it there. We've run out of time. Thank you very much for your time, as always.
Sure.
That was Warwick Lucas. He's from Galileo Capital. After the break, we have some more business news.